This demonstration will show how to use the Federal Evidence Applied app using a specific example. And let's use an example of a statement by a co-conspirator. So let's start with the home screen and use the objection button. This would mean that a party is objected on the basis of hearsay. On the home page, you would touch objection. You would then scroll to hearsay, and then you would scroll to the co-conspirator option. On the first screen, you will determine if the declarant and the opposing party are members of the same conspiracy or not members of the same conspiracy. The red highlighted option means that if they are not members of the same conspiracy, then the hearsay statement is inadmissible. If you were to select that, the entire screen would turn red. Also note that there's a blue highlighted field which contains a practice tip dealing with conspiracies. In this particular case, it was whether there independent evidence exists of the conspiracy in addition to the statement itself. Now, if you selected that both members are members of the same conspiracy, then you would select the first option. Next, you would determine if the statement was made in the course of the conspiracy. Next, you would determine if the statement was made with the intent to further the conspiracy. And then finally, you would make a determination whether there was independent evidence of the conspiracy. If you selected there was, the screen would light up green, indicating admissibility. You can also double check the actual text of the rule by pressing the rule button. You can return to the home page by pressing the home button. Let's now move to the Move to Admit option. This option is generally used to determine in advance of trial whether testimony or evidence is admissible or inadmissible. This feature can be used on any piece of evidence or testimony. On the next screen, you will then identify the method by which the evidence is being introduced, either through witness testimony or evidence identified by a witness, judicial notice, self-authentication, or deposition. In our example, it would be witness testimony as the witness is repeating a co-conspirator statement. The next screen is the competency screen. In this case, we'll assume there are no issues with the witness competency. Next, we will also assume that there's no relevancy issues nor prejudicial impact issues, although you can screen for those if you wish, but in this case, we will say no to that. You will now select the type of evidence. There are 10 different types of evidence. In this case, it would fall under hearsay. The next option is to run the hearsay screen. In this case, you would select yes to determine if the statement qualifies as a non-hearsay statement or an exception to the hearsay rule. The next determination is whether the statement is offered for the truth of the matter asserted, and in this case it is. This screen would show all the types of oral statements, approximately 40, that you could choose from. In this case, you would select co-conspirator. This brings us to the slide asking if they are members of the same conspiracy. And next, if the statement was made in the course of the conspiracy, and if the statement was made in the furtherance of the conspiracy, and if independent evidence exists other than the statement itself. And of course, this would then determine the admissibility of the statement. Well, let's go back to the home page and select the Rules of Evidence option. In this particular case, the Rules of Evidence option is particularly helpful for students learning the evidence rules one by one. But in this case, if you went this route, you would select Rule 801. This provides a complete analysis of the hearsay rule. You could select Rule 801 and then start with the first question is whether it's an out-of-court statement by a person. Next, is it offered for the truth of the matter asserted? And then you would go through the same analysis. Were the co-conspirator statements offered by a party opponent? If so, the next slide goes to statements of party opponents, and here you would select co-conspirator. This brings us to the slide asking if they are members of the same conspiracy. And if they are, was the statement made in the course of the conspiracy and in furtherance of the conspiracy with independent evidence supporting the conspiracy. Let's go back to the home screen again and use the search option. This allows the user to get instant results. This would be a great application in the courtroom for quick answers. In this case, you would select the search option. You would next go to the top of the screen and start to type in the word co-conspirator. By the time you get the C and the O in, the conspirator slide will appear and takes you directly to, again, the same questions. Were they members of the same conspiracy? Was it made in furtherance of the conspiracy? And is there independent evidence that supports the conspiracy? So this is an overview of how to use the four main features of the Federal Evidence Applied Act.